What's up, guys? I just woke up, so I apologize if I look like shit, but it's irrelevant. Anyway, so this is the story of how I found Jesus and God while taking psychedelic mushrooms. So this happened yesterday, and I feel like my consciousness is still trying to absorb what I experienced and be able to apply it to my life in a more coherent way, in a direct, with clarity. Although I will admit, during the mushroom trip, it was the most clear I've ever felt in my entire life. Now, there's a lot of misinformation about psychedelic mushrooms. Christians often quote the verse that say, have a sober mind, and they use that as a reason to avoid mushrooms. But what mushrooms do, because what that verse is talking about is drunkenness. It's talking about drinking. It says you can drink but don't get drunk, like have a sober mind. When you take psychedelics, or at least when you take mushrooms, what it's doing is it's speeding up the processes in your brain. It's literally like here's sober, here's when you're drunk, and here's when you take mushrooms. Like it's enhancing your consciousness and your ability to connect dots and to really be in direct communion with God. And what is God? God is unknowable. God is everything. God is my body and my consciousness and the tree behind me and the sky behind me. And the tricky thing about God is that we're often so close to God, Yahweh, Ra, Source, Universe, in the name, the energy with infinite names. All right, we're so close to it that it's hard to see it, because if it's all you ever see, it's like, does a fish know it's swimming in water? I don't know if they do, but I don't think they do. Does a fish know if they're in water? It's the same thing, right? It's everything. So I'm just gonna explain what my experience was, and this is not my first time having a mystical, divine communion with mushrooms. It almost feels like every time I take mushrooms, something divine or something mystical happens. So I'm gonna break it down for you. So I made some mushroom tea, and my intention was to use it as an opportunity to learn and evolve. And I actually was planning on making a YouTube video explaining some things to you, and that's why I took the mushrooms, because I thought, oh, this will help me be more in touch with everything, right? As usual, because I don't have a scale, I completely underestimated the dosage and ended up taking a lot. So I'm sitting over here in this chair, right? And the sun was right there. It was clear sky and the sun was shining. So I'm sitting in the chair and I'm looking at the sun, and I had headphones on. I noticed, me personally, I'm a very musical, auditory type of person. So I often will do this thing where there's a video by Ethel Cain called The Ring, and she explains it pretty well, but it's basically you use the music as a bridge to get in touch with a frequency, and then you use the frequency as a bridge to get in touch with God. All right. So I'm sitting in the lawn chair and I'm listening. I have one of my songs playing called Autumn Loves, and I was just trying to set the vibe for the trip. I wanted it to have a good vibe, and that song has an amazing vibe, if I do say so myself. So I have it on repeat in my headphones, and I'm just kind of feeling the come up, right? Like I'm starting to feel the physical sensations in my body, and I notice my body starts feeling like it's vibrating. Like I notice a subtle, just a vibration energy. It's hard to explain, but it felt like my whole body was kind of pulsating with this slow woo, 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 like wave. Now, instead of focusing on the music at this point, I catch on to the wave of the frequency. And this is when something clicks in my head, when I think it's Einstein or someone talks about, like, think of everything in terms of energy and vibration, frequency. Like, it was so clear to me, oh, this frequency is like what I need to be focusing on, right? So I start focusing on this frequency, and I just write it. Like, it's almost like I was putting energy into feeling it, and then that was making it speed up. And it was, instead of going woo, 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 then it was going woo, 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 and then it started getting faster and faster and faster. And like, the faster it got, the more power it started taking over my body, and the more I literally was like physically shaking with energy. Like, it felt like my body was about to burst with light. Like, it was so intense. And it got to the point where I like looked down at my hands. My hands were like cramping up like that. It's called like lobster hands. Like, I couldn't move my hands. I was literally getting paralyzed. And I actually have experienced that before doing holotropic breath work, which is when you do like repetitive breathing and listen to tribal music, and then your body will kind of like freeze in on itself. So this started happening. And I won't lie, at this point I started getting a little scared, because this intense energy and the freezing feeling also came with like this feeling of like, because I was staring at the sun, and I was like, oh, like the sun is like God looking at me right now. And then I started losing color in my vision. Everything turned gray except for the grass. The grass was green. All I could see was gray and green. And then I felt like God was just staring at me. And as I was feeling the vibration raise and raise, I was saying like, I am. And I was saying like I was trying to will my way through it. And it was almost like God was saying, oh, you want to be God? Okay, let's see how you like feeling this energy. Like, see if you can handle it. And it got to the point where I started slowing my breathing, and I was getting close to a state called samadhi that I've entered before, which is a deep meditation where you basically completely stop breathing, but you don't feel like you need to breathe. That's the thing. You don't even feel like you need to. And when you stop breathing, basically you lose all touch with your body. Like, you just go somewhere else, and it's a place where you have complete weightlessness. You're like floating. And I was listening to music, so the place I went, it was like I was just in this void, but the music was playing, and then there was colors and shapes that was being interacted with by my music. But I got like scared, because I'm like, dude, when you get that feeling of going out of your body completely, and you feel your body stop breathing, it feels like you're dying, and you're like, oh, I'm about to transcend the physical realm. Like, it felt like I was being squeezed out of my shell, or my human vessel. And I was like, nah, like, I know I still got stuff to do on Earth, so I gotta come back. So I just somehow managed to get back into my body. And at this point, I'm kind of like freaking out a little bit, because like, it was just really intense. Like, divine energy and God is like terrifying. Like, it's so powerful, and it's a primordial fear. It's not even controllable. So I go into my house. I'm like, man, I need to chill out. So anyway, I go into my house. And I'm just sitting over here on the couch. I got like a big blanket and wrapped it around myself. And my body kept wanting to go back into samadhi. It kept like trying to stop breathing. And I was like, man, I'm not trying to do that right now. So I'm like trying to read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And it was like the words in that book, I wasn't specifically reading anything in particular, but it was like looking at the words in the book was aligning my mind to like a higher frequency. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was really cool. At this exact moment that my trip is like peaking, one of my good friends, he texts me, and it says, I'm yearning for self-actualization right now. And the way, the timing of it, like when you're deep into a trip like this, nothing is a coincidence. You're able to see, because nothing is a coincidence, but oftentimes our normal minds we see things as coincidences or as random because we aren't able to see the bigger picture. Because everything's intentional and it's like perfectly symmetrical. It's like the infinity loop. How is it? I don't know. Everything's perfect. And I could see that. And the text he sent, it was like floating and had like a rainbow effect to it. But I don't think it actually did, because I looked again later. Maybe it did, and it's just like an iPhone thing, but something about it being like that, I was like, okay, this is important. So I just start asking him, I'm like, what is that? And he's like, basically everything. Again, the text floating with the rainbow effect. And I end up calling this my friend, and something about that call just felt so divine. It felt like it was just meant to happen. I felt like I was hearing myself, like a mirror reflection of myself in a different reality at the same exact place, like at a checkpoint. Like we both were walking up the steps of a pyramid, and then we got to the top and we saw each other at the top from the opposite side. That's what it felt like. And this whole call, it just felt so divine, and like God was speaking through my friend the entire time. I mean, since God's always speaking all the time, it doesn't really mean much, but I was able to see it, which is a difference. And it was like, I would ask a question, he would give me an answer that was so perfect and would enlighten my brain. And then he says, oh yeah, I don't even know how I knew that. Like, it just is coming naturally. Like, it feels like God's speaking through me. And he ends up telling me about Jesus Christ, and the way he was explaining who Jesus was and like his teachings and what he did for us, I just resonated with it in a way I never have before. It was like I could visually see what it would like to be on the cross, and I could feel like the importance of it. And what I see it as is, it's like Jesus was a really enlightened human being who serves as like, it's like, say here's all the human beings, and then one of them goes to God. One of them gets connected with God or the divine or the universe, and then he comes back to tell everybody else. He now serves, his existence serves as a bridge so that everybody else can take the same path he did, because he went there. Do you know what I mean? So something just felt really right about this and really divine. And he was explaining like what it means to claim Jesus as your savior, or just to say like, I'm going to trust this other being to bring me to a place that I don't know if I can get to on my own. That's basically what it means. I trust this person, and I claim that like they are in line with truth, and that I will follow them and follow their teachings. And the more I start to read the actual teachings of Jesus and to just read the teachings, like I realize everything he's saying is everything I've always believed and always naturally felt and been. So I don't see a reason not to trust this guy. He seems chill. And the fact that he was shown to me like this in such a visceral, divine way. I'm telling you guys, on that call with my friend, I was standing out here, I'm looking up at the clouds. All the clouds have eyeballs on every part. Like, have you seen the picture of the biblically accurate angel? There's eyeballs on every part. And then one of the clouds turned into a perfect DNA. Like, it was like, you know what a DNA strand looks like? Perfect in a cloud. And I wasn't just tripping either, because I showed it to my friend on the FaceTime, and he's like, whoa, that's crazy. So my friend tells me about like claiming Jesus as your savior. So I'm like, okay, how do I do it? So I'm sitting on the porch, and he basically tells me what to say and what it is. Right as I do it, I look at my clock and it hits 4:44, and right as I do it, like, I felt like a whoosh of energy go over my body, and a car drove by right at that time, and the colors, everything became more colorful, and it just felt right. So I hope you guys enjoy the story. This is how I found Jesus on mushrooms, who I will be trying to learn some teachings from and continue my journey and have a personal connection with God. And yeah, I hope it was entertaining or enlightening or somewhere in between.